Hello and welcome to Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. My name is James Moffitt and I will be your host. Today I am joined by a good friend of mine, Mark Williams. Mark, how you doing?
Well, good, doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm all right. Yeah, so Mark, how long have we known each other?
Gosh, I don't know.
A couple of decades?
At least.
So I appreciate you joining me on this podcast, Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. And you and I have a lot in common in that we're Second Amendment supporters. We're U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights supporters. We love shooting. We believe in self-defense. We believe that legal gun owners have a God-given right to carry a self-defense weapon to protect themselves and their loved ones, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you live in Hanahan, South Carolina, which is not too far from where I'm at. And so I don't think that we're going to have a whole lot of trouble finding things to discuss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to kind of introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Okay. Mark Williams, semi-retired. I have a drone videography and photography business. And I've been a gun owner for probably, I would say, 30 years, almost 40 years actually, and a concealed carry permit holder for 25.
Well, it's good. And I know that you believe in training because you and I have been to a training course together and we've been to the range before. And that's a good thing because we try to tell people that if you buy a firearm and you get your CWP or concealed weapons permit, I see my dog just came in. Foxy wants to be part of this. Anyway, a gun is not a magical talisman. You can't just buy a gun, stick it in your nightstand, and expect it to just keep the boogeyman away, right? So part of gun ownership is gun safety, gun education, and training, right? And preparing yourself for the eventuality that you may have to use that self-defense weapon for self-defense, right? That's the whole purpose of getting it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think it's important to be informed and be a responsible gun owner. I've been a member of USCCA for 15 years, I guess.
Right. Me too.
And it's important as well to be insured because as soon as you do have to use that weapon, you will wind up in court.
Yeah, as they say, every round that you fire through that weapon is called a little attorney. And it's amazing to me. I know security officers and even police officers and legal gun owners that they're not prepared. They don't have a USCCA, or I actually changed over to CW Safe because it was a little bit cheaper and actually offers more. But yes, having self-defense insurance is very, very important. Unless you got between $10,000 and $50,000 sitting in a savings account somewhere or an IRA that you can withdraw, and because when the smoke clears, you call 911 and tell them that you're the victim, and the police show up. 9 times out of 10, they're going to confiscate your weapon. And they're probably going to put you in cuffs and stick you in a patrol car. And you need to be able to say, officer, I'm the victim. I called 911 and I will answer your questions, but not until my attorney is present, right? Don't answer questions because the police are not your friends, especially when they get to a crime scene. So it's very important. Like I use Stephen Futerall in Mount Pleasant. He's my Second Amendment on call. He's on speed dial on my phone. He's got me in his phone. And if I get involved in a self-defense issue, I'll call 911 first, and I'll call him second. Then I'll call CCW Safe or CW Safe and say, hey, this is what just happened.
Yeah.
So,
the important thing is to say nothing. I mean, you'll receive advice from attorneys and other people that say, I feared for my life. I acted in self-defense. Smart thing is don't say anything.
That's true. I agree.
Regardless of whether you were, the only thing I need to say is I'll answer your questions when my attorney's present.
Right. I agree. That is a good thing to say. The least amount of words coming out of your mouth, the better.
Yeah. And that's easy for you and I to sit here and say, when the fit hits the shan, you're going to have adrenaline and all that involved, and all this smart stuff I'm saying right now probably go right out the door.
Right. Well, I think that part of gun education and gun safety is being mentally prepared and psychologically prepared for the psychological piece is you need to decide in your mind and in your heart that if you're going to carry a weapon for self-defense, are you mentally and psychologically prepared to pull the trigger? Are you mentally prepared to hurt somebody else, right? You have to come to grips with that way before that event happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been recently several people that have used a weapon in self-defense, and they're in jail and they're not getting out because of either overreacting or saying stupid stuff.
Right. Well, that's part of the gun education is getting educated on how to avoid a self-defense incident as much as possible, how to survive a self-defense incident if it were to happen, and to be prepared for the aftermath of facing the legal system or judicial system in Berkeley County, Charleston County, Dorchester County, whatever county it is here in the Low Country or wherever you're at. The chances of you in this political climate, the chances of you uh, being exposed to a district attorney or prosecutors that are gun friendly or Second Amendment supporters is probably slim to none. That's not to say that there's not some out there that are. In the South, we're mostly conservative and mostly there's a huge population of gun owners and self-defense and Second Amendment supporters. And so I would say in the South that we probably have a better chance of rolling the dice and getting a semi-friendly prosecutor looking at our case. If you're in Connecticut or New Jersey or California or any of those liberal states, I can guarantee you that the judicial system is stacked against you. So it's very important that you have legal representation already on your side and waiting in case you are involved in a home invasion or God knows what could happen to where you might have to use deadly force to protect your life or protect the life of a loved one. So,
yeah, I think it's important, just like we, do rehearsals as far as using our weapon, dry fire, draw and fire drills. I think it's as important to rehearse what we're going to say should that, have happened. And that way it's muscle memory.
Right.
At that point, understanding the situation that you're in.
Right.
In spite of that adrenaline and making sure that you can not get yourself in more trouble by running.
So if you're in South Carolina and you're listening to this podcast, here's a book called Shaw's Gun Laws. South Carolina Gun Law, Shaw's 2019. He has a newer one out. I just haven't purchased it yet. But this book will tell you everything you need to know about South Carolina gun laws and what to be prepared for, right? So I highly recommend that if you're carrying a firearm for self-defense, you educate yourself on South Carolina gun laws. And I don't care what state you're in. There's bound to be a Second Amendment resource, USCCA, whatever, that can provide you links to the gun laws for your state and knowing where you can legally carry. So you've got, like in South Carolina now, we have constitutional carry. You don't have to have a CWP to open carry or conceal carry, which is a law that was just passed recently last year. It took us 10 years to get there, but we got there. That's the important thing. However, if you don't have a CWP and you think you're going to carry your weapon into another state and cross state lines, you need to think again, because that CWP will provide you with reciprocity with other states like Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, other states. Don't even think about carrying a loaded weapon into the northeastern states, because they will put you in prison. They'll bypass local jails and just put you straight in prison. I've heard of police officers who are duly sworn law enforcement officers here in South Carolina that made the mistake of getting stopped by New Jersey State Police or whoever and had their badge and had their weapon and wound up in jail because they are not allowed to carry a firearm unless it's under certain circumstances, I guess.
Yeah, in South Carolina now they still offer the CWP, the permit, and I would suggest if you are going to travel that you continue to keep that current, because if you just go, I'm from a concealed carry state, it's legal in my state, and you're in another state, you're going to get locked up. And then even when you have the CWP, make sure that the state that you're going to offers reciprocity with South Carolina.
Right. USCCA has an app that you can download to your smartphone or to your tablet, and you can click on South Carolina and it'll show you on the map where it's legal for you to carry concealed in these other states. Or if you let's say you live in, I don't know, Colorado. Well, Colorado's anti-gun anyway, but if you live in Colorado and you happen to have a CWP or whatever they call it, then it'll show you what states will provide you reciprocity or allow you to carry concealed or even openly in the other states around you.
Yeah, the resources that USCCA offers are just phenomenal. I mean, there's online training that you get with your membership. There's, like the app is hugely helpful. So,
Here's a magazine that you get from USCCA.
yep.
Whoops. Nope. That says Guns and Ammo. That's
No,
not the
yeah,
magazine. Hold on. Wait a minute. That's the wrong one. Here we go. Concealed
there you go.
carry.
Concealed carry. Yep.
Yep. They come out with a magazine like once every 3 months. And I read them from cover to cover. And they have all sorts of editorials. And one of the things I like is they have a section, like 1 or 2 pages, where they talk about homeowners and legal gun owners using their self-defense weapon to protect themselves and their loved ones. Home invasions, burglaries, all sorts of situations all over the United States. Every state in the union, there's a story of some sort telling you about how illegal gun owners used their defensive firearm to protect themselves or a loved one.
Yeah, those are the stories you don't hear about on the news.
Oh, of course not. No. All right, so we've kind of covered that topic. Tell me what you're fired up about, Mark.
Oh, you don't.
Let me get you wound up. Let me get you wound up for the listening audience.
You don't want to start that now.
Yeah, tell me what's on your mind. Anything that's Second Amendment related, gun, liberty, politics, conservatism, crooked law, politician. Just, I know you were on TV recently, and they only aired the 25-second clip of you that they felt was family friendly on TV.
Right. Yeah, they had their editors working overtime on that, I'm sure.
Tell me about that conversation.
Basically, it was a town hall for Mark Smith, the representative, South Carolina representative. And they were talking about this SC Doge thing that they're planning on doing. And my question to them is, if you were doing your job, we wouldn't need Doge, right?
Right. Exactly.
And then this past week, Senate, South Carolina State Senate, thought it was a good idea to vote themselves an $18,000 a year raise.
Unbelievable.
That they obviously haven't earned, or they wouldn't need to be initiating SC Doge. It's just infuriating, the amount of money that these people steal from us, and they're not accountable at all
right.
for what's done with it. There's no accountability in the state or in the nation.
They voted the comptroller out. It was like 55-6. They voted to get rid of the comptroller in South Carolina. I forget what his name is.
The treasurer.
The treasurer.
Larry
yeah,
Green.
he was the one that brought it to everybody's attention that there was a $1.8 billion deficit or amount of money that was like up in the air and nobody knew where it was or what it was for or what happened to it. And while he might have been partially responsible for that, I don't know. He was the whistleblower. He was the one that brought it to everybody's attention. And then, so what do our legislators in Columbia do? They get rid of him.
Yeah, I think he was more responsible for it, and somebody else brought it to light.
Oh, okay.
And then he was covering his own butt by saying, "Oh, we found this," when in fact he was probably one of the profiteers from it. But it's that kind of thing. I think it was it Jefferson that said, the downfall of this country will be when politicians are able to vote themselves a raise. And there's way too much corruption in it all.
Yep.
And I don't know, short of burning it down and rebuilding it, I don't know what the solution is, because they're not going to police themselves. There's way too much going into their pockets to, expect them to do that.
Well, as long as there are special interest groups that are lining the politicians' pockets and encouraging them to vote for the laws that they want passed, we've got to have term limits. We got to get rid of special interest groups and lobbyists that are doing that, because our politicians, both in Washington and in Columbia, South Carolina, and probably every state in the nation, there's no term limits. It's like they're there for life. They grow old. They become millionaires, like in Congress. Like, I don't know, 75 or 80% of the politicians in the Senate and House of Representatives have become millionaires while they're in office, right? And we, the people, need to get pissed off and start sounding the alarm and quit having our heads stuck in the sand. I think a lot of people, like I'm part of the John Birch Society. I'm part of the South Carolina Carry, which is a gun education, gun safety, Second Amendment, liberty-minded organization's been in existence since 2015. I'm one of the founding board members. I have spent a lot of time and effort, sweat, blood, and tears trying to promote the Second Amendment, trying to promote liberty, and trying to recruit county leaders and zone leaders for South Carolina Carry, and now with John Birch Society, where it's a conservative think tank, supports conservative politics, and it's like there's a lot of keyboard commandos and a lot of people that are willing to come to the meetings for 40 minutes or an hour and listen to the guest speakers and watch the promotional videos, but getting them to actually do something to promote liberty, it's like pulling teeth. It's like as long as people's paychecks continue to flow, and they can make their house payment, they can make their car payment, go out, and go out to eat, and as long as people's liberties are not infringed upon, or they are encroached in some way or made uncomfortable, getting them to do something is I don't know what the trick to getting them to do that. To do something.
I don't either. I mean, like when I was at that town hall, their response to my statement that, they need to do their job as far as allocating money and whatnot, they were like, well, it's complicated. And I'm like, you have the House, you've got the Senate, you've got the governor's office. What are you talking about? The Republicans have all three, and you're telling me it's complicated. Well, yeah, there's a bunch of different personalities up there. And I'm like, you have the House, you've got the Senate, and you've got the governor's office. How the hell is it possible for you not to be able to get done what needs to be done? And it's like with property taxes, the boat property tax in this state.
It's ridiculous.
Is exorbitant.
Yeah.
I pay over a third of what I pay for my house property tax for my boat. All right. And my boat is a jet boat, so I don't pay the motor tax, or it would be as much if I had an outboard motor. They tax the boat and the motor separately.
Oh my God.
So my boat tax, if I had a motor, would be as much as my house tax. And it's ridiculous. And when you read the bill, $10. The rest of it goes to the schools, like, in the town that you live in. But probably 90% of it goes to the schools. And I've got a problem paying for something that is most definitely failing. I mean, it'd be like going to McDonald's and getting a, rat burger and still being expected to pay for it. It ain't working. It needs to be fixed, and hopefully when they get rid of the Department of Education, that'll help and put everything back to the local schools.
Right.
But it pisses me off no end to get a tax bill like that and see that the money's, 90% of the money's going to schools, and we got kids that can't read and can't add.
South Carolina, my wife's a teacher, so I have to tread lightly here, but
so she's the problem.
South Carolina education is I don't know, I think we're ranked 48th in the nation or something like that.
Yeah, we're right down there. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And my wife's a special ed teacher, and so she's a little bit on edge because they are passing bills or thinking about passing bills to do away with special education.
That's not true.
That's what she's been hearing anyway. I don't know.
That's teachers union talking bullshit. I can't say that, can I?
Sure you can. Yeah.
But no, what they're doing is they're moving those things that were in the Department of Education. They're moving them to Treasury and other places where they belong, where they should have been in the beginning.
Okay. I got you.
So that the allocation of those funds is done by Treasury rather than by a bunch of bureaucrats at the DEA. Bureaucrats at the Treasury deal with it instead.
Well, getting back to politics in South Carolina and in Washington D.C. for that matter, the problem is that we're stuck in this. I'll say we have the three-party system because the Libertarian Party is part of it. However, the major parties are the Democrats and Republicans, and it just baffles me to no end that every election cycle, the best they can come up with, like this last election cycle, it was, what were your choices? Kamala Harris. It was going to be Biden. Well, Biden luckily bowed out because He's
No,
like,
he was bowed out.
right, he was bowed out. Well, he was a puppet anyway. I don't think he made a single decision on his own. Jeff Dunham's puppet called Walter. Everybody calls Biden Walter because
Yeah.
he looks exactly the same and acted exactly the same. So then Kamala Harris, somehow she was just automatically became the front runner for the Democratic Party. She didn't have to run for anything. She didn't have to get vetted. She didn't have to get approved. They just said, okay, Kamala, you're up. And then we had the choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And I know you're a huge Trump supporter, and I respect that. However, both of those choices to me was ridiculous. I mean, is that the best that the United States of America can do? Are those the two best choices for president of the United States? Forget this election. Go back to the other election, or 2016 or 2008. Name an election where we actually had really solid choices that we could vote on and feel like those people were going to be, we the people were going to have a solid representation in our government.
Well, the Democrats did the same thing to Bernie Sanders with Hillary Clinton that they did this time around in 2020. They basically kicked Bernie to the curb and anointed Hillary as the candidate. And if you look at the turmoil in the Democrat Party right now, since Trump's election, I think that Kamala's probably the best they've got to offer. Because
she's certainly better than Biden was.
These people are lost. No, she wasn't any better than Biden. She was scary stupid. Couldn't put a sentence together if you held a gun to her head. Kamala was the same way as word salad. I mean, she'd just start making shit up,
Yeah.
It's like,
okay.
Wheels on the bus go round and round, I like
you're going to be in trouble with Katie. You watch that.
I like yellow school buses. What are you talking about?
Well, I don't know. I would hope in my lifetime that we can work towards term limits. And
absolutely,
got to have term limits. We got to get these senior citizens, and I can speak to senior citizens because I are one.
But
we've got to get these seniors. The
thing about term limits is they're never going to vote for term limits.
Actually, there was a senator that did submit a bill for term limits.
Yeah, that
I heard about it
in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I heard about it. I never heard if it got traction or what happened with it. But I'm sure it didn't.
They killed that before before the ink was dry. And the only way that we're going to be able to implement term limits and those kind of things is with a convention of states. That's the only way that's going to ever be implemented. And what we've got to do.
Talk about convention of states.
What we've got to do is quit voting friggin' lawyers in as legislators because they write laws. The laws they write with the lobbyists are written to enrich lawyers and make everything that we have to do. I mean, you can't take a dump nowadays without using an attorney for something. It's just crazy.
So talk to me about convention of states and how that would benefit us. Because I know about it, but I don't really know that much about it.
And I would hate to give out misinformation. I know enough about it to probably get me in trouble.
Oh, okay.
People say, well, if you do that, then it's going to open up for all kind of other things to be done. But the Convention of States can be targeted. Simply things like, term limits and that kind of thing. So
Convention of States means that the states are they succeeding from the United States? They're going to become
no. What a Convention of States is brought together to do is to bypass Congress in order to amend the Constitution. So basically, if you have, and I forget how many states it is, come together and say, they'll convene and on changes to be made to the Constitution or an amendment. They'll vote on specific amendments to the Constitution. And it was devised as a means to protect us from idiots in Congress like we have now. Don't get me started.
So tell us about Lindsey Graham. Flimsy Graham. Oh my God. Our rhino representative for South Carolina.
He's profited so much off of these wars. Afghanistan, you notice that you haven't seen him in the news a lot lately.
Right.
Here and there, Trump's trying to end these wars, and Lindsey can't afford that. So
great. War is big business.
Yes, it is. Well, and it's like finding a cure for cancer. There's a cure out there.
Sure.
But they're not going to tell you what it is because it's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry.
Pharmaceutical companies are getting rich off of people dying.
Yeah, and poisoning people. That's why they're also pissed off at RFK, because he's exposing, what they've been doing to us for decades.
He is an interesting fellow.
He is.
Sometimes when I listen to him speak, I wonder if he's had a stroke.
No, he has some kind of illness that affects his vocal cords.
Oh, yeah? Is that it? Okay. Yeah. I wondered about that.
Makes it really difficult for him to speak.
It was kind of like George Bush. He was embarrassing every time he stepped up to the teleprompter.
Yeah.
But anyway, what else you want to talk about?
I don't know. I've about covered it all, I think, without going on a profanity-laden rant.
I've been interviewing this guy from, I forget what his name is. What is his name? Evan Jocko with the Solutions Party. I don't know if you've listened to any of my podcast episodes, but he's been on 2 of my podcast episodes, and he's trying to get the Solutions Party fired up and started in Oregon. And if he can make that happen in Oregon, he wants to go to other states. And so I'm thinking about working with him about bringing that to South Carolina. That's a long way away, and there's a lot of groundwork that has to be laid to make that happen. But basically, the Solutions Party is, it's going to attack the root of all the political corruption, ethics and all of that stuff. And term limits, getting that implemented, and a lot of other things for that matter. So I've been very interested in hearing what he has to say about the Solutions Party.
Yeah, in my opinion, bringing another party into it is just like
he's talking about abolishing the Democrat and Republican Party altogether. I don't understand
that shit.
Go to solutionsparty.org. He's got it all laid out there. I haven't visited or read it, a lot of that, but
you're not getting rid of the Democrat and Republican parties. As like we just said, the pharma's big business, and so is politics, and the Republican.
Well, and the oil companies and all of the above,
Democrats
right?
Have a monopoly there, and they're not going to let that happen.
But we got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
We can't just throw our hands up in the air and throw in the towel and go, well, it's been corrupted and screwed up for centuries, so we can't really do anything about it other than bitch and moan and piss and carry on, and be.
I think what Trump has done as far as shaking all of it up is what needs to happen. That's why they're all so pissed off, because he's taking away their damn money pot and stripping their power. It's just like these corrupt judges that are all over the place that have been put in, 200 and some odd judges that Biden put in place and Obama, that are just as biased and corrupt as they come. And Trump and they need to be dealt with. And Trump's in there shaking the whole damn thing up. And that's, people are complaining about the, tariffs and all this, and they work. Tariffs work. And if you turn on something besides MSNBC, and do a little digging on your own, you'll see that these countries are turning. They're responding to Trump. And the get along crowd have been lining their pockets with Ukraine money. And he's putting an end to it. It's all you got to shake it all up, and he's exposing through Doge, the most corrupt of the corrupt. So,
well, he's not my favorite person in all the world, but that's okay. I will say that he has certainly been shaking the trees and rattling the bars. He has been acting upon a lot of the things that he campaigned on, right?
Yeah, he's doing everything that he promised in his campaign, which is another thing that the politicians can't stand. He's been showing just how full of shit they all are.
Right.
Like Obama or like Biden saying he needs legislation before he can do anything about the border. Well, that was total bullshit. Like Trump said, all we needed was a new president. And I hope that they find that the pardons that Biden signed are invalid because he used an auto pen to do them.
Well, he pardoned his entire family, didn't he?
His entire family. He's Fauci, the whole damn lot of them, the whole January 6th committee,
right?
Which was a farce.
Yeah, the Democratic Party, they literally weaponized the DOJ and sick them on Trump.
Absolutely. And Trump supporters, in the January 6th stuff, locking up grandmothers that didn't even go into the Capitol and holding them without any hearing. You want to talk about due process? They're all worried about the damn due process of these illegal aliens, and yet the J6ers sat in jail for 4 years with no due process. None of them went to court. Hardly any of them had trials. They had no due process whatsoever. But now all of a sudden, libtards are all worried about the damn illegals having due process.
Did you hear about the 2-year-old that got sent away? They I want to say export. What did they do? When they're sending deporting. They deported a 2-year-old
with her mother.
With her mother. Okay.
And see, that's the other thing about the lying ass media. They don't tell you that part.
Right. No, I didn't hear that. All I heard was a 2-year-old got deported.
They deported the kid with her mother. They were deporting the mother, and the mother wanted the kid to go with him. That's not what they're telling you on the media. But that's what happened. And it's absolutely disgusting how dishonest the whole damn lot of them are.
Yeah, Trump kicked the press corps. He deported a whole bunch of liberal media outlets out of the White House press corps, and boy, they're angry about that.
Yeah, good. And again, it goes back to him. He's no bullshit. He's straightforward, and this is the way it is. It's like the adults finally came home. The party's been going on for 4 years, and and now the kids don't want to clean that mess up from the party, so the adults are having to do it.
He's definitely a blunt force instrument.
I love it. It's what we need right now, because there's nothing else is gonna straighten this out. I had a very, very wise man tell me back in 1986. He was a professor of economics at Sanford University in Birmingham. And I said, Jim, what do you think back then, what do you think it's going to take to straighten this out? And he said, I don't think anything will straighten this out but us going back to candlelight and horse and buggy. It's going to take it all falling down before it can be straightened out. And hopefully we don't wind up at that point.
Right.
I doubt we will in my lifetime, but these jackasses that are running around now probably won't take them long to burn it all down.
Yeah, I certainly don't like the direction that our country's going in.
You don't like what Trump's doing, or you don't like what's going on as far as all these protests and all that other crap they're doing?
Well, that too. I just think that I don't know. I'm too much of an optimist. I would like to think that we could all be grown adults and quit acting like children. And we just have so many problems that need to be solved, and we need to put partisan politics aside and just start fixing the crap that's going on in our country, economics.
You got to fight fire with fire, Bo. And that's what Trump's finally doing. And the thing that's so shocking to everybody about it is that for so long, the Republicans and quote conservatives have been just going along with all this crap. The Mitch McConnells and all this, they don't have the intestinal fortitude to do anything about it. And now that Trump's in there doing something about it, it's like a total shock to the system. And the unfortunate thing is that we have sat by and allowed it to happen for so long that it's a huge cluster right now. And it's going to take a lot to straighten it out and correct it. And that's why he's hitting so hard, because he knows it. I mean, you can't, you could probably break up a concrete floor with a hammer, but you're kind of pissing in the wind when you could get the proper tool, a jackhammer or a sledgehammer, and do it a lot more efficiently and quicker. And that's what he's doing. And that's, all right. Unfortunately, that's what it's going to take.
We're at 46 minutes, so I guess I'm going to start wrapping this up.
Okay.
Mark, I appreciate you being on the podcast episode. Hopefully you'll come back and we can talk about some more of this stuff. find other things to talk about. There's no shortage of topics, I'm sure. To the listening audience, I want to say thank you for the privilege of your time. Our podcast is hosted on Captivate.fm, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Public Radio. That's the audio version. I upload the video version of this podcast episode to rumble.com. That's rumble.com. That's a conservative version of YouTube. You can contact me at Liberty Gun Rights Podcast at proton.me. That's Liberty Gun Rights Podcast at proton.me. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please share it with your Second Amendment friends, family, and coworkers. And everybody have a wonderful day. All right. Thank you. All right.